Hello, Mr. Liam Schubel.
Hello, Michael. How
Welcome
are
to the
you?
flip side. Very good. I'm glad
Thank
to
you.
have you here in front of us. I love the background there.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I'm in my office here.
Very nice. Nice place to look out on the sun and see the trees. That's great.
Yes, and I got the man looking over my shoulder over here.
Hey, I just noticed that. A bust of BJ himself.
There he is,
Look at
making
that.
sure everything's copacetic.
Well, that's a good opening into what I wanted to get in with you today because
Right.
I wanted to kind of focus on philosophy. But I want to take that and segue that into a lot of things regarding not only chiropractic, but just the world we're living in right now in general. It's a very interesting time we're living in, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's
Yeah,
transformative.
that's a good word for it. Transformative is a good word for it. Let me start off, though, by doing a little introduction here because there are going to be a lot of people watching who don't know you. There will be a lot of people watching, hopefully. Hopefully, a lot of people watching. Let's just put it that way.
Period. That's all we want.
Um, but a lot of people watching that have seen you and known you from a lot of different sources. So let's start off just with a little introduction. I'm losing where I had your introductory information here. There it is. All right. So Dr. Liam Schubel, chiropractor. Let's put it out there right away because there's always those detractors that you said you were a doctor. We're going to talk about that too. That's always one of those
I
things that
love
kind of,
that one. I
yeah, I
love
know.
that one.
You said doctor. All right.
Especially
Uh,
after the pandemic, the authority fallacy is not working as well as it used to.
well, paradigm shift is one of the things I want to talk about today, and
Right.
we can hopefully really do a good job with that one. But for those of you who are familiar with the world of chiropractic, then Dr. Schubel is someone who you're most likely familiar with, not only as a speaker on the chiropractic circuit, Cal Jam for sure, Mile High, and many others. Those are the two that I know of for sure. But Dr. Schubel has written a couple of books, at least two, right?
That's right.
Okay. Cast to be Chiropractors was the first book, and Schubel's Holy Grail of Business was the second one. Another thing I want to pick your brain about today.
Perfect.
But for me, one of the big things for Dr. Schubel, as far as my connection with understanding who you are, is your role at Sherman College. For those who don't know, Sherman College of Chiropractic in South Carolina is considered one of the last bastions of straight chiropractic. We'll talk about that too, but really deep in the philosophy of chiropractic. So it's kind of the mecca if anybody wants to really still be in the heart and soul of chiropractic. One of the few places left that's really training chiropractors in that way. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree, and not just in the philosophy, I'd say as well as in the science and the art of
Oh,
chiropractic. For sure.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to put that into the back seat.
Mhm.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm going to let you go on about that for
Sure.
a while to promote Sherman, and also too as a past president of what was FSCO, now as IFCO.
You've been doing your homework there, Dr. Nichols.
Yeah,
Very few people know that FSCO IFCO combo.
well, we're going to get into that conversation,
Right.
and you'll
Right.
understand why I understand that as well as I do as well. So, you graduated. Did you graduate from Sherman?
I did not. Everyone thinks I did. I'm a graduate from Life University when Dr. Sid Williams was running one of my greatest mentors in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? And I'm going to go ahead and open up everything with this because you brought into this topic, and that is so you graduated in 95. I went into chiropractic school in 96. So I was coming in as you had already been out for a year. I went to Cleveland Chiropractic College in Los Angeles, the one that's closed now.
Okay.
Not known for its philosophy, but not known for being the opposite either. It was kind of middle of the road.
Correct.
Um, and I'll give you an interesting story from my own experience in a little bit. But you mentioned Sid Williams. One of the things that I have found fascinating is not the word for it. Really, at the core, disturbing for me is the lack of understanding and knowledge from the graduates that I've met in the past several years of people that I would have assumed they would have known, like really hardcore known.
Right.
I'll mention names and they'll go, who's that? And I'll mention
Wow.
another name. They'll go, who's
Right.
that? I mean, you and I think we're at the last, and this shows my disconnection to some of the people who have moved up into those ranks now. Okay. Like yourself, I know you, but a lot of I'm not as familiar with, but we had Sid Williams, of course. We had Sigafus, right?
Correct.
We had Fred Barge.
Correct.
We had
Reggie Gold.
Reggie Gold. Oh God, thank you for that. That was one of my inspirations, my first inspirations. Joe. I mean,
Joe Felicia.
Joe Felicia
And
and
Joe Strauss.
Joe Strauss. Joe Strauss. I got to know Joe Strauss really well, and what an amazing human being. Just an amazing human being. Period. He's one of those people that in chiropractic I would put into sainthood.
Well, and a prolific
just
writer, a prolific
Yes.
prolific writer to the level I think we hadn't seen since BJ, right? BJ wrote
Right.
these voluminous novels, and nobody has done that since, except for Strauss. He has a
Right.
tremendous amount of work behind his name,
Yeah, the green books, right?
right? And then Strauss with the blue books, right?
Blue books, and Barge with the purple books, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
I've got the red books. I've only got two.
Oh, wow. So, those names and, others, when I was in school, Ron Oberstein, we had come and speak a few times, power that made the body, heals the
They
body.
would say heals the body, right?
Yeah. So, and then, who am I thinking of? I'm drawing a blank here on someone that I shouldn't be drawing a blank on. Patrick Gentempo
There you go.
and
Christopher Kent.
Christopher Kent, So we had all these amazing chiropractors that were coming to the college, and I'm sure these are the same people that came to life, even probably more so than what I experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Though that I mean, to think of it today, the first time I saw Fred Barge walking into a classroom at Life University, and again, for those people who don't know who Dr. Fred Barge is, his dad was seatmates in Palmer College with Clarence Gonstead, so they're real gondroids, right?
Right.
And I remember when I was thinking about studying chiropractic, going to a place. I don't know if you've heard of this, Dr. Nichols, a place called a library. They used to have these things. That's where you'd go to get information. And you used to open up a thing called a book, and there was a description of chiropractic and chiropractors, and they said that they are known as being rugged individualists. Well, if you ever had the experience of being in the presence of Dr. Fred Barge, he was without question a rugged individualist.
Absolutely.
You're
Yeah.
talking about a man in the 1990s that would enter a room with a beret, an ascot, and
Yes.
speak in this grand Shakespearean thespian
Yes.
style. They haven't made somebody like that since or before. And so, just in being in his presence, you knew this is a man who is absolutely unabashed and unafraid of what everyone else thinks. He knows what he knows, and he's going to get it out to the world with a style and a pizzazz that people are going to remember his name, and they're going to remember who he was, what he did, and for why. And I think that's what we need a little bit more of today in the chiropractic profession.
Oh my God, the characters. I mean, Sigafus with his Hawaiian shirts,
Correct.
and his big beard. He came in like a Santa Claus coming back from vacation in the Caribbean, right?
Correct. Correct. And he was seeing 1,000 people a week or more. And so you that was one of the persons you looked at him and you said, gosh, and I say this in a respectful fashion, but
Sure.
like, if that guy can make it, anybody can, because he was the antithesis of authority in his form of dress, and in his presentation. But what he did have absolute authority in was the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic. And I think one of the things he taught me was there's a direct proportion between success in chiropractic, and I would say success in any profession, and your ability to communicate. That is, BJ Palmer said the weakest link in the chiropractic profession is the chiropractic adjustment. I would beg to differ with Dr. BJ, because I know a lot of great chiropractic adjusters that have empty practices, believe it or not.
Oh, I know that.
The ones that I know that are hugely successful, and I would say the same about attorneys, about accountants. It's those people that can express the essence of what it is they do in a way that is simple to understand, that motivates you to take action, and that establishes them as an authority in whatever the field that they're practicing at the moment.
I would 100% agree with you. I think that is foundational. I mean, philosophy in anything in life, right? And then being congruent with your philosophy and the things that you do is really important. So let's come back to this, but let's back up because I don't want to gloss over your background as an intro into this. Tell me what brought you into chiropractic, okay? And give me kind of a little bit of just kind of you coming into this profession.
So I was born into a family that was not well off. We were always afraid of the poorhouse, right? Never sure if we were going to get kicked out of where we were living. Very simple foods. I love going to a restaurant today because it's just amazing that I can afford a restaurant. I think it's the coolest thing, being able to go to a restaurant or stay in a hotel or have a vacation. And I was very spiritual, and I would say, God, give me some talent that I can use to help people with, because I know that, when you're poor and when you're disadvantaged, you have this low self-esteem, and you have this low self-worth. And so I knew that if I could help other people, that would increase my self-esteem and my self-worth. So I thought about, I was an altar boy in the Catholic Church. I thought about becoming a priest until I realized that priests can't get married, so they can't have relationship with women. And I said, okay, that's not for me. I think women are fantastic, one of God's tremendous gifts to the world. Then I thought about being a medical doctor, and I volunteered in the hospital as a candy striper. And I saw some amazing things, I have to tell you. In the emergency room, I saw some phenomenal things. The doctors there were doing wonderful things to help people survive what it is they were going through. But the trauma of that, I mean, I could still remember of a young boy who was like 17 years old. He just got his license. His father gave him a Ferrari or a Porsche. He drove it right into a tree with a bunch of kids. And just to see that kid come in with his head like mashed potatoes, and the father crying, I shouldn't have bought him the car, I killed him. And that stuck with me now. Like, it's over 40 years. And I thought, I don't want to go into a trauma ward every single day and then come home to my family and go, how was your day, honey?
Right.
Hey, kids, how was school? So it takes a special type person for that. I'm not that person. And then when I started to work on the floors, as people moved out of that emergency trauma care, which I think is hugely valuable in medicine, I started to see people getting sicker and sicker instead of better and better, and
Right.
taking more and more pills and treating more and more symptoms or diseases, and actually getting worse instead of better. They weren't recuperating their health. They were just lining themselves up for the next treatment session of the next symptoms that were going to come about because of the treatment that they were currently taking. So I said,
Yeah.
this seems like insanity to me. I think I'm going to say check, please, and move out of the medical profession. And during that time, my mom, who's like the Energizer Bunny, even today, I mean, she's in her 80s, and it's tough to keep up with her, thanks to chiropractic. She came down with something called bilateral bursitis. And
Okay.
basically, what that is in the shoulders, she had each one of the bursa, which have a liquid in there and that are responsible for lubricating the muscles and allow you the movement and freedom without pain. They seized up. She had no liquid in there, and every time she tried to move, it was like, she said, it was like somebody stabbing her in the shoulders. And we went the route, right, of the medical route, and she's taking all these pills, she's injecting, and then they were talking about doing an experimental operation on her. And one day, a crazy eccentric friend of hers said, "Hey, why don't you try a chiropractor?" And my mom said, "What are you, crazy?" By the way, the difference between crazy and eccentric. It's how much money you make. The wealthy people are eccentric, the poor people are crazy. And so the lady says to my mom, "Well, how's the medicine working out for you?" She says, "Well, not too good. I now I have stomach problems, I've got kidney problems, I've got liver problems. I'm blowing all these high values for basically deterioration of my body." She says, "Well, I don't have back pain or neck pain." This is what she says to the lady. And the lady says, "Well, chiropractic's not about that, actually. It's about optimizing your life. It's about removing interference. You should go see my chiropractor." So we go see this chiropractor by the name of Robert E. Lee for the Civil
Robert
War
E.
people.
Lee.
Robert E. Lee Jr. And
Interesting.
and he was interesting. Also interesting. He was practicing in a majority African American community, so it's pretty funny. I mean, his business system. But again, Sherman graduate. I didn't know it at the time. Sherman graduate, and he set my mom up on a table to do what's called a toggle move. It's a very specific move on the atlas, and it looks like, to the person who's not aware of what the chiropractor is doing, it really looks like a karate chop to the side of the neck.
Yeah.
And my dad might not have an advanced education, but he speaks with his hands and, and with violence sometimes. He got up, he was about ready to kill this chiropractor. And my mom like gets off the table and says, "Wow, I can feel the life force flowing back into my body again." And like within 24 hours, she's jumping around. She's the Energizer Bunny again. And of course, that's all great. But here was the awesome thing. The chiropractor didn't stop there. He said, "Hey, when am I checking your kids?" And again, my mom's response, "Well, they don't have back pain, neck pain, bilateral bursitis. Why would you check my kid?" And again, he had to explain it's not about that. It's about optimizing the nerve system, and that optimizes all the other systems in your body. You want your son to develop, heal, function, and adapt and express his life optimally, don't you? Well, yeah, I do. Everybody wants that for their kids. So I started to get checked, and I was very sick as a kid. I had pneumonia time after time after time. We were always living out of the medicine cabinet. And Dr. Fred Barge, who we mentioned before, wrote a book called Life Without Fear. When I read that book, I go, "This
Great book.
is me, exactly."
Yeah.
So many people that aren't under chiropractic care really are living a life under fear. Like, oh my God, what's the next disease or infirmity that's going to strike me? And then I'm going to have to go to the altar of medicine and receive the next treatment for that. They're unaware that the body has this innate ability to heal and function optimally. And the question we need to be asking always is, what's the cause of this? Why is this not functioning like it used to function, right? And that we were born to be healthy. We're not born to be sick. And if we're sick, we got to start asking the right questions. As my mentor said, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. So you got to ask those questions and the right questions about your health. Where does health come from? Where is health blocked? How can I remove the blockages? If I remove those blockages, what can I do to support that afterwards so it doesn't happen again? And these are the kinds of things that we learned under the tutelage of Dr. Robert E. Lee, Sherman graduate. Again, I think it's so important. Chiropractors help so many people, but because they don't open their mouth and communicate the bigness behind what it is we're really doing, so many people love chiropractic. So many people love chiropractic, but they love it just for a specific back pain or neck pain or musculoskeletal
Yeah.
condition. And it's like you're missing out on the bigness of what your life could be like. I know still to this day, even when I get adjusted, a chiropractic adjustment, I still get off the table and I go, "Oh my God, I can't believe people live without this." I have to tell you, my children have been adjusted since birth, right? And my son, one day he's like 5 years old. He's 23. 5 years old, and he had an atlas that could choke a horse. He had just had a fall off his bike, and I adjusted his atlas, and he looks up at me. He goes, "Dad, I am so lucky. Can you imagine if you weren't a chiropractor? I probably would have had to live with that pressure on my brainstem." This is a 5-year-old. "Pressure on my brainstem for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years." And it's so often we see even like young people in our practice, and they're like, "Well, this just happened yesterday, these pains," and we take an x-ray, right? And it's like, no, sorry,
No,
that's
it didn't.
that's decades old. Decades old, doc. I'm only 20. I'm only 30. Yes. And when was the last time you've been to a chiropractor? Never? Yes. Okay. How would your teeth be if you were in the same scenario, right? It's
Perfect
like,
example.
oh, that makes total sense,
Yeah.
doc. And I think this is the great selling point of chiropractic is it makes total common sense. And they often say if you want to hide the treasures of the universe, hide them behind common sense because everyone's looking for this complicated, non-simpleton answer behind health. And really, optimized health is simple in the sense that there's a series of principles, there's a series of laws, immutable laws that if you follow, you are guaranteeing yourself the highest level of genetic expression that you could possibly have while you're here. And so I think, the term doctor, and you mentioned like, "Oh, you're a doctor, you're not a real doctor, you're a
Right.
doctor of chiropractic." doctor in Greek means teacher, right?
Teacher.
And so what we're, I think, supposed to be espousing while we're on this planet, in addition to delivering that specific chiropractic adjustment, is this philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic and how it has the ability to transform and evolve our lives, because it really is the only profession in the world that's highly trained to detect, analyze, and adjust these specific subluxations, these vertebral subluxations that block the life force from the brain cell to the tissue cell and vice versa, thus limiting our ability to heal, function, adapt, and express our lives optimally. And so I think chiropractic, if we can get back to that foundational communication and express ourselves, and I think we couldn't be at a better time in history right now. We'll get
Amen to
into the
that.
Maha
Yes.
movement, but we couldn't be at a better time in history to be positioned exactly where we are as doctors of chiropractic. And as I said, I'm involved in X a lot, and so many times now, really the only retort that people have against me is this appeal to authority fallacy, this idea that only a medical doctor that agrees with me can is an authority in healthcare. And
Right.
even like BJ Palmer, when chiropractic was being actually attacked by the medical profession, he said, the best way to eliminate us guys, the best way to eliminate chiropractors is to get better results so that the people don't have to come see us and then get the results that they were looking for with you in the first place. And so, what's really had chiropractic grow and grow and grow, and I've been involved with that now all around the world, is that we get results. It's we're all about the results. And if we didn't have that, we would have been gone a long time ago. And instead of being gone, we're expanding exponentially throughout the world because, as I think it was BJ Palmer or Dee said, there's no difference between a Chinaman spine and our spine here in the United States. It's all the same. And if you look at cultures all around the world, Socrates talked about, the Greeks, right? Look well to the spine for the
Spine.
cause of all disease. We know that the Romanians had bears walking on top of people's backs to try to move certain bones. It's not specific chiropractic. I practiced for many years in Latin America, and we have things called hueseros, personas called hueseros. They're bone setters, all right? And so,
Right.
all throughout the world, there was an innate understanding that the spine does play a role that's very crucial to our functioning. What chiropractic brought out was the scientific background behind it. AT Still, even in the osteopaths, AT Still thought that the spine was important to health. He thought it was because the bones were blocking, arteries and blood flow, and that was his theory. And what D.D. Palmer brought to the table, and I think it's interesting how the universe created 1895, right? Chiropractic
Yes.
discovered, and 1895 Röntgen created the X-ray, and so then we could see that the anatomy was affecting the physiology, that the position of those bones in the spine, the vertebra, could impede the optimal functioning of the nerve system. And that's been the development. Even BJ Palmer was the first to say that the brainstem went down to the level of C2. And medicine for years said that's not true. They're a bunch of quacks. Heard that before, And when MRIs came about, we realized, I think it was in the 80s or the 90s, they announced, hey, guess what? The brainstem goes down to C2. And so we've been waiting a long time for medicine to catch up. I think now that there are a very large group of individuals in the medical model that are realizing that the vitalistic philosophy is the way of the future, and they're looking at ways at how can they support the vitalistic force in the body rather than be a detriment to it. And I think in the end, we all, no matter what profession you're in, we all have to have a primary focus on what can we contribute to the optimal functioning of the individual that's come to us looking for help, and rather than an ego trip saying, if I can't help you,
Amen.
nobody can help you.
Yeah.
That's crazy by definition.
I think the one of the core ideas that BJ brought forth was the whole idea of the body doesn't need, all the body really needs is for us to take the obstacle out of its path. once we take that obstacle out of its path, innate intelligence knows exactly where to go and it doesn't need any further assistance. Now I'm paraphrasing what he said. You might be able to quote it more exactly, but it was the removal of interference, and then the body can just find its own path. And that's really the core of everything when it comes to actual health, not the concept of health that the Western medical profession has worked around for decades. Was it Patrick Gentempo, I think, is who used to always talk about, when you create a healthcare model based on a sick care system, you end up with a sick society.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And if you remember back, Dr. B.J. Palmer, was a famous anecdote of him at the time. A very successful treatment was Carter's Little Liver Pills, right? There was a business called Carter's Little Liver Pills. AIDS nature was their promotional thing. And BJ's phrase was, right, the body needs no help. It needs the interference to be removed. And what he did was he went out. He was a big fan of Hawaii, and he's in Hawaii, and he goes up to this volcano there. I think it's called Mauna Loa, and he takes out Carter's Little Liver Pills and says, "Okay, this is supposed to aid nature," and he throws them into the volcano. I didn't see any difference, and if you think about it, we use the wrong terminology even when we go to see a doctor. Doctor, I'm here to cure me. I don't know how many times you've heard this, but I've heard this thousands of times. Hey, doc, I have this problem now. I always cured myself with this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, if you cured yourself, why are you here again, right?
Exactly.
And so what the role of these pills, or these injections, or these surgeries a lot of times, is palliative. And I think we need to move from the idea, there's a role and there's a necessity for palliative care, but we have to understand that that's all it is palliative care. We also have to understand the role and the importance and the vitality of restorative care, or restoring the optimal function type care. Even a surgeon that goes in and, you have a tumor and he removes the tumor. He's really, in essence, he's not curing you. The surgeon didn't cure you. He removed the interference. Now the body's going to heal all the damage that was done during the surgery, that was necessary to remove that tumor. But it's the body that actually does the healing. There's that saying, you could put the greatest scientists in the planet in a laboratory that's fully equipped with everything that they need. They can't create a new cell, a new human cell out of nothing.
Right.
The human body can do that. And so you ask your question, why and what does that? And we know that it's a vital force that does that because, we say in the Spanish, muerto fresco. I think it's a better description of it, but a recently dead person, right?
Muerto fresco. I get that now.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a freshly dead person, right? Somebody just dies right now. They have all the cells, tissues, and organs, but they've lost immediately when that life force leaves. They've lost immediately that ability to adapt to the environment. Dr. Kent used to say, they're going to assume room temperature at this point. And
I've heard him say that, yeah.
And then they'll be in the marble orchard, right? So as soon as that life force leaves, you immediately lose the ability to adapt to the environment. You immediately lose the ability to heal, because I could cut the finger of a cadaver and I could put an antibiotic on it. I can put an analgesic on it. I can put a disinflammation thing on it, and it's not going to heal. It loses its ability to express life because it's no longer expressing life because there is no life force. And it loses its ability to function. All functions stop when the life force leaves. So, one of the things I say, the greatest proof of vitalism is comparing a person who's alive to a person that just died. The only difference between the two, they have all the organs, all the systems, they don't have the vital life force. So They lack the function capability, they lack the healing capability, they lack the adaptive capability, and we know they lack the ability to express life.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was Joe Strauss that used to use this example, or if it was Reggie. So much similarity between the two of them in their conversations, was about the pocket watch. You could take a pocket watch and take all the parts out and put it back together again, and it's going to function exactly the same way. But if I did that with a human body and I took all the parts out and put them back together again, it's not going to happen. It's not the same thing. And that was the difference between mechanistic, meaning you are the sum of your parts, as opposed to vitalism, which you are more than the sum of your parts. And a human being is more than the sum of its parts. A pocket watch is the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. And I think in the scientific world, when we're looking at Newtonian science, it was very scary to talk about vitalism because it's a force that we can't quantify, right? You
It's the
can't
unknown.
quantify yet. I believe we're going to go there eventually, like with the tricorder in Star Trek. I believe we'll eventually get there. I think chiropractic is even going to advance to the point where we will know what the best technique is to use at exactly the right time, because we're going to be able to measure life force within a person and where it's being blocked. I think but in order to get there, Dr. Nichols, we have to first acknowledge that it even exists. And I think in the development of quantum physics, now we're seeing that there are more and more physicists and scientists in general that are open to the idea that there is something that we can't quantify, but we know by analyzing in a deductive or inductive way, we know that there's something there. And the famous thing with Linus Pauling, Dr. Linus Pauling with vitamin C, he said, I've studied the smaller and 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 the smaller. And he goes, as low as I go on that totem pole, there's always something that is coordinating it all. There's always something that I can't figure out what it is, but it's coordinating everything that's within that living life force. And frankly, everything that's in the universe is being coordinated. The matter or the energy doesn't disappear. The matter does, but the energy doesn't disappear. It just transforms into another form of energy.
Yeah.
And so, but I think with Newtonian physics, we can't even acknowledge that life force because we're unable to quantify it. And I think now in the quantum physics, we're saying, okay, we can't exactly quantify it, but we could tell that it's there based on the observable evidence.
We can still acknowledge it.
Yes.
Even though we can't prove it necessarily, we can still acknowledge it because we know that there is something there, and we don't have to have the test tube turn red to prove that 100%.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so once you acknowledge it, then you can develop science around it. You can develop technology around it to try to figure out how it's being expressed and where it's being blocked.
To begin quantifying it.
I think that's the future.
Yeah. Well, you're 1,000% correct that, the time we're living in right now with Maha is a revolutionary time. And this post-COVID world that we live in, right? COVID had a lot of bad, undeniably bad, horrifically bad in some ways, but it had a silver lining and it had some positives that came out on the other end of it. And for me, that would be the paradigm shift, not in society as a whole, but in a large percentage of people, there was a paradigm shift that occurred with that, not only in politics, but also in healthcare. People, like you said, there are some medical doctors who came out the other side of that saying, what the fuck? They were saying,
we could do that on this program.
We could do that here. I don't care about that.
Okay. This is like a Cal Jam podcast.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not even going to go there for a second. That, there are medical doctors that come out the other side saying, what the heck with our profession, with their medical profession, questioning things about their medical profession. And now they are questioning vaccines, mostly just the COVID vaccines. Unfortunately, their brain can't quite shift for some of them to the childhood vaccine schedule, but at least they're questioning vaccines. They're questioning the information that was given them. They're questioning the organizations that they thought were correct and authoritarian. They're questioning the research journals and how accurate things are. And so this questioning is opening up a pathway, I think, for everything that you were just talking about.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The pandemic turned out to be a huge favor for health freedom in essence, even though we were locked down, and censored. it turned out to be a phenomenal movement. And you know, a lot of times things have to get really bad before they get really good. You know, that's the whole term revolution is built on that, right?
Yeah.
People aren't going to take up arms unless there's some serious problems around them, serious friggin' problems or whatever term you want to use. So in order to motivate people to get out of the boiling water, the slowly boiling water, right? Like the
Yeah.
frog
Get
in
the
the
frog to
slowly
jump.
boiling water. That you have to be able to motivate them. And I remember it was a funny thing. One of my co-authors of my book, Cast to Be Chiropractors and Schubel's Holy Grail of Business, Dr. Judd O'Grady. I remember talking to him when this whole pandemic thing was going on, and they announced, Trump was doing the warp speed vaccine. I remember looking at him and saying, "Man, if this vaccine is successful, we're fucked," because they're going to mandate this shit for everybody, and they're going to double down on it, and everything. And oh my God, it was the total opposite, and it was thank God for this. I mean, you were able to watch in real time how the vaccine went from 100% to 95% to 90% to 85%. And each time that it was announced, the percentage, it was announced as if God just gave me the 10 commandments. I'm giving them to you. I am the absolute authority. And they censored absolutely everybody who we know now. And
Yeah.
today was a great day. Dr. Moore, who was going to be put in jail for a long period of time for giving out fake vaccine cards and
Right.
so that people could travel. Bondi just said the DOJ is dropping that case. So that's a huge piece of news. And
That's a huge piece of news to me. I did not hear that yet. So amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I was concerned about that.
And the reasoning behind it, which is what I love, was this guy was trying to do the right thing at a moment when the authority and the government would not let anybody do the right thing.
Yep.
Huge. And so
And he did it anyway. And he did it anyway. Damn the consequences.
and that's a lesson for the future. And that's a lesson for the future. And that's why I say it's really rich now, because that appeal to authority fallacy that happens all the time. You're not a doctor, you're not a vaccinologist, you're not a this. Well, listen,
Epidemiologist.
we
Yeah.
had the best in the best of the best of the best telling us information, the absolute supreme experts and leaders in their fields telling us false information. And they knew it was false. So, like, that's the amazing thing. So, I think what that brought about, I don't think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would have ever been appointed to HHS secretary if it wasn't for that. If
Yeah.
that vaccine had been successful, and then like you say, which is brilliant, is people are starting, not all, but people are starting to say, now they're making wait a minute. They said this about the COVID vaccine, it was false.
Right.
Could this possibly be the case with the childhood vaccine schedule? And now they have the video of this ACIP, this group that approves the vaccines, basically saying, "Hey, this hepatitis vaccine, there's no valid stuff." And they're like, "Well, we're going to prove it anyway."
Right.
And now they're complaining. They're saying, "Why'd you fire those guys? They're the experts." And you're saying, well, the experts were approving things without the scientific. And the whole funny part of the whole thing is the whole foundation of the scientific method is that science is never, ever, ever, ever settled.
Settled. Thank you.
You ask the question, you form a hypothesis, and then you develop the scientific studies to either prove that hypothesis wrong or right. They're concerned now that Kennedy and the gang are questioning whether the scientific studies were done to prove that these vaccines are safe and effective. And what they're finding is that no, they didn't have long-term
Safety studies. Yeah.
safety studies with an inert placebo, right? So that's basic fundamental science, basic fundamental vaccinology science. They got the science wrong. And then you look at these charts where they're saying, this is the funny one I'm seeing lately on X from the vaccine religion people, is that, look, measles was solved. It was eliminated. Now it's back. Well, the definition of elimination is it's gone. It's not coming back. You look at polio, and it's like the number one cause of polio in the world today is the polio vaccine itself. And
Yep.
so you're saying, gosh, there's a lot of holes in this. And the great news is now they can't censor us. They could censor us before, and that's really what was keeping them in power. And as Kennedy said, if you look back at history, it's never the good guys that are doing the censorship, because if those vaccines are safe and effective, hey, bring it on, baby. I got all the studies. Here you go. Here's another one. And you know what? Do some more studies. That's great. We all want the vaccines to be more safe and effective rather than, no, we're not doing any more studies. The science is settled. That's a crazy mentality to have.
And debate it, open debate, discussion. And that never existed during, God, when was this? So I don't know if you saw my interview with Ginger Taylor, but we were talking about kind of the history of the whole health freedom vaccine movement, the pre Maha, right? And 2015 was really a groundbreaking year. And I don't know if groundbreaking is the right word, but it was a pivotal year, because that's the year that we had the big measles outbreak in Disneyland in California. It set up a snowball effect in California, where you had Senator Pan coming on and saying, we're going to take away all of these rights and all of these exemptions, and we're going to do this, that, and the other. We're even going to go after homeschooling. It was horrible. And then that started creating a wave that was going across the country, with other states saying, hey, well, if California can do that, I think we're going to do the same thing. And philosophical exemptions just went poof, they were gone. And then they said, well, since philosophical is gone, now let's work on getting rid of religious exemptions. And hey, we're even going to go after the medical exemptions, until people started pulling on the brakes. And it created such an uproar. This is where some of the conspiracy comes in, where people are like, oh, pandemic, because 2020, 5 years into this battle, what was happening with vaccines, oh, now suddenly the opposite side's got to say, we've got to do something to stop all these crazy anti-vaxxers. Now, I'm not saying this is reality, but that's where some of the thinking comes in, because there was such a linear progression of what was happening in the political world and in what was happening with Maha. And there was this clash that was happening. And a lot of people in America didn't see that, because it wasn't on their radar. That wasn't one of the things that they were paying attention to. But if you, like you and I, were in the hearts of that, you could see this pattern happening, right? What was happening?
You're talking to the right guy about that, because it went California, which I was unaware of at the time. This was not my fight.
Yeah.
Okay? Because I had religious exemption in New Jersey. So I was ignorant about what was going on in other states. And frankly, I was ignorant about politics. I did not care about politics. In 2018, I could not have told you who the governor of my state was. I didn't know who my representatives were in the state house and in the, I didn't care. Politics, dirty, ugly, not interested, corrupt,
right.
Forget it. Right? Doesn't matter to me. Especially state politics, right? I like, oh, I vote for the president. I'll vote for, senators in Washington. California happened, not to my knowledge, right? I didn't know anything about it. New York fell, didn't know anything about it. Connecticut dropped, didn't know anything about it. They came to Jersey.
There you go.
And you don't mess with Jersey. The last thing you want to do is mess with New Jersey moms, especially. They're vicious, right? And so all of the sudden, it was like you remember that show, Different Strokes. What you talking about, Willis?
Exactly.
What? You're taking away my religious exemption. What, are you out of your mind? So all of a sudden, and I have to tell you, 50-something years old, I had never been to the state capitol in Trenton for anything in the cap. All of a sudden, I'm there on a regular basis. I'm there multiple times a week with 10,000 of my other new friends.
It was huge. It was huge.
And we were out in the freezing cold weather. And it's just ironic, because it all happened, you talk about a synchronicity in history. We were there at the same times that George Washington crossed the Delaware to attack the Hessians in Trenton at the Battle of
Interesting.
Which turned the tide of the Revolutionary War. We were losing, and losing until the Battle of Trenton. It was the first time that we had a major victory. And the Battle of Trenton, we call it 3 because there was actually 2 battles of Trenton. The third Battle of Trenton, two in the Revolutionary War, and the third one was with the health freedom movement, when we won by 1 vote, and we were out there screaming until our horses were void. And that, my friend, Dr. Nichols, is when I said to myself, I'm sitting out here in the cold, and I said, how did I get here? You know, like that Talking Heads movie. How did I get here? That Talking
Yeah,
Heads song,
I
man.
love that song. Yeah.
What am I doing here? Why? How did I get here? And I said, who are these people that are taking away my unalienable rights to freedom? Who are these people? How did this come about? And that's when I started to say, oh, I get it now. Politics is important to everybody
Hmm.
that values their freedom, because everything that you love on this planet can be taken away from you with a
Yep.
signature by a
Yep.
politician. So that's when I said, okay, my goal is to be on a first name basis with everybody in this state that is involved in politics, because we're not going to let, this is what I got to tell you, the Jewish people said this after the Holocaust. Their famous phrase, never again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So ask a Jewish person why it's important to be involved in politics, right? I mean, they
Right.
understand that. They say, "Oh, they put so much money behind it." Yes, because their very existence can depend on a political movement. And I would say the same thing for the health freedom movement. We're all about rallying and protesting and raising money for this and raising money for that, and that's all great. But if we got behind and got involved in politics, what politicians care about is money
Oh yeah.
and votes. And
Yeah.
so I'm the guy now at every politician dinner. Hey, I'm Liam Schubel, the chiropractor. Hey, you know what, Senator? I really appreciate your stance on health freedom. We're so supportive of everything you're doing. If you ever need any help, I'm here for you. You got another dinner that I could spend money on and come to? I'm there.
Yeah.
So that what I realized is during that issue when they were trying to remove our religious exemption, I was approaching people that I had never approached before, and I'm asking them for a favor. And they're like, well, who are you? I don't know you. You've never supported me. The goal now is for us to not be the crazy people, us to
Right.
be the supporting people. I love you, Senator. I think you're great. I'm supporting you. Oh, guess what? We got this thing going on. Could you help us out with that? I'd be more than happy to, Dr. Schubel, because you've supported me. You've got me votes. You man the telephones when I need it, and you give me contributions. How can I help you? I want to
Yeah.
know how I can help you because you're keeping me in power. And that's how the game of politics works. And you see, that's how we got Trump into office. And then that's how we got Kennedy, right? We did amazing phone calls and emails. And by the way, we learned from Trenton. We shut down Trenton. They could not do
Trenton was
business.
beautiful.
They could not do business. They actually, in the end, said, we can't operate like this. We haven't seen anything like this since uh, our entire memory of recollection of history. And so they basically said, my God, if we mess with these health freedom guys, they are going to shut us. We're not going to be able to do business as usual. And that's exactly what happened when we wanted Robert F. Kennedy to be Health and Human Services. We had long lists of people that were on each one of those committees. And every morning, I did the same thing for Trenton. Okay, what am I doing today? I'm waking up and I'm going to do an X post. I'm going to do an email. I'm going to do a phone call. I'm going to do a Facebook post. I'm going to do an Instagram, and I'm going to tag these people. And I'm going to continually call and call and call until we're heard. And we were. It's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And
Always.
that's what the health freedom movement, I think, to go to the next level, we really have to start taking politics, which is disgusting, which is not nice, right? We have to start taking that as if our life depended on it, because it truly does. And certainly our freedom does, for sure.
Amen. Amen. You talked about the New Jersey. I wasn't in New Jersey, but I was watching it every second that I could on the high wire, was filming directly from that. I remember you could hear the people inside who actually got in chanting, and then they were showing the cameras of all the people outside on the steps. It was huge. I couldn't get enough of that. I was watching every second of it, my heart racing, because I knew from my experience with that this was a pivotal moment, that someone had to make a stop somewhere. Like you said, it was collapse, 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 collapse. Someone had to make a stop, and that was a huge collapse or stop. And maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I want to say it was New Jersey. Um, there was a moment at New Jersey where Kennedy and Dell were they had been invited to do a debate on vaccines with these epidemiologists and doctors. and they've been invited to this place to go do that. And at the very last second, they got a message saying, we're not doing it. And it was typical. It was the same idea because we had started this whole conversation about the debating, that when there's a debate set, something always comes up and collapses it. And what comes up and collapses it is the medical associations are calling and telling these doctors, you can't do that. You can't go debate these people. And they're forbidding them from debating anybody. And so we never have the debate. It never happens.
Correct. And I have to tell you, because you mentioned Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Del Bigtree, I did not know either of those people before the New Jersey event,
Right.
and they were crucial. Crucial.
Oh,
I met Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the event, and I had not been involved in environmental. He was a hugely known in the environmental. He did great work with the Hudson River and cleaning that up in the New York, New Jersey area. He's done tremendous work around the world within the environment. I'm not in that sphere, so I knew nothing about him. And then when he showed up and started to give these talks and these and he had the facts and the knowledge and the information, and it really stepped me up to say, okay, I got to get more educated. If I'm going to be leading here, I've got to get these studies under control. I have to understand the science behind all this. I know it's not for me, right? But I have to get more educated on the why behind it's not for me. And
right.
Kennedy was absolutely eloquent. He was divinely inspired during the thing. It was like, I almost felt like, that's that biblical story of holding the hands up. We were holding him up, and we were holding his hands up, because as long as his hands were up, everything was going our way. If he was not there, I do not think we would have won. And certainly Del Bigtree, in broadcasting it to the rest of the world, started to show, hey, you can do this in your community. These people are not as powerful as you think they are.
Right.
They're hiding behind glass and censorship, and you've seen it now. I see these. If you remember during the pandemic, you would be ratioed in 2 seconds if you said anything about a vaccine.
Oh,
And now,
100%.
and now that there's no censorship, it's absolutely the opposite. When you look at the WHO, they're ratioed on almost every vaccine post they do. You look at Offit, he's ratioed on every post he does. You know what ratioed means? Ratioed means,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so
No, explain it though.
ratioed means, like, so let's say I put a post out and I say, the ocean is blue, right? That's what I'm claiming. If everybody on that post said it's red, it's orange, it's green, it's red, it's orange, it's green, that's called ratio. That means, like, the absolute majority do not agree with my post. And that's what's happening. And we've learned, by the way, since, that the reason we were getting ratioed during the pandemic was that they had bots. They had these bots that would go in, and they weren't even real people, and they were always fake names, being this almost religious cult of vaccination. And their goal was to ratio us so it looked like we were like a wild card,
Yep.
a wacko position. And now what's happening is our position is actually becoming more and more normalized. And I hear a lot of people, parents of children, especially at these board meetings, which I was funny. I was watching a Turning Point video earlier today. I guess there's an event going on, and one of the women who was, I can't think of her name right now, but she was a big Hollywood actress with Disney, and she was living in California under, she called him Newsomlini. Uh, she said that
Appropriate. Yes.
she said that nobody cared about anything she said until she went to a Board of Education meeting and started to talk about, why are kids masked? Why are you pushing this COVID vaccine? And she said, then I was blocked, I was attacked, I was a racist, I was an anti-Semite, this whole procedure that happened to her. Well, she opened up the talk this morning on the Turning Point saying, I want to give a great big welcome to all my fellow domestic terrorists. And the link to that was, it was under the Biden administration. It was leaked that the FBI was tasked with investigating these Board of Education meetings to
Right.
identify domestic terrorists. And these domestic terrorists were just moms and pops expressing their opinion of, hey, I don't want this for my kids, which is the whole idea of having a Board of Education and having the ability to speak. They weren't threatening violence. They were just saying, we're not happy with what's going on here. We're in disagreement with it. And so it's just funny how how things have changed. The shoe is on the other foot, so to speak. And now with freedom being unleashed, the truth is starting to come out from all levels, and certainly we're starting to gain the upper hand. But we have to maintain this momentum because it could go the other way. You certainly in the next election. I look at it as like we have a ticking time bomb for the next 3 years. We got to take as much action as we can to get as many things through to ensure our freedoms are going to be protected, and certainly start to work on these next elections.
100%. Yeah. And the good thing with that is that there's the people who we need to be focusing on are being very obvious and allowing us to say, oh, well, thank you, because you're the one we're going to go after next because you're the one that's interfering with what Bobby's trying to do, or what have you. I wanted to say something. You were talking about the domestic terrorists. In 2019, the World Health Organization gave its top 10 lists of the most dangerous things that are happening in the world according to health. And I don't remember which number it was. It was number 4, number 5, something like that, was vaccine hesitancy. One consider on their top 10 lists of most dangerous things, 2019, vaccine hesitancy. So, that showed you the attitude.
Well, and on
Uh,
that note, if I could mention,
yeah, please.
the big thing now is the measles, right? This we're having more cases, right?
Wow.
And again, it's not an original quote. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I was listening to the other day, and he says, "Okay, there's been 4 deaths, which any death is always tragic, right? There's been 4 deaths from measles in the past 20 years.
Right. Right.
There are 100,000 newly diagnosed children with autism every single year."
Yep.
And so where is the focus, right? Why? And then the other thing is, why are we gaslighting the vaccine injured? Wouldn't we want to listen to them and find out again, if the vaccine is part of your belief system, wouldn't you want it to be as safe as possible? So wouldn't you, instead of gaslighting these people that have been obviously injured by the vaccine, wouldn't you want to sit down with them and find out why? Is there a genetic disposition to be injured like that? And then again, is there a relationship between, because the famous thing is there's no relationship between causation and
Correlation.
correlation.
Right.
Okay, but let's do some serious studies on that.
Yeah.
And again, those have not been done. And I think, I know the last I heard from Kennedy, he was saying that we're going to have some new information out in relation to that correlation or causation of autism. I think in August or September, he's talking about.
Yeah. He mentioned by September at the latest.
Okay.
The people who want to, and I call them the newbies. There are the newbies who have come into this whole thing since COVID. And some of these people are medical doctors who are getting a lot of press. It always irks me, and I know I shouldn't take it this way, but it irks me that all you have to do is put MD next to your name, and suddenly you're an expert. Suddenly, suddenly what you say has more value than anybody else
Sure.
because you have MD next to your name, and it's the most outrageous thing possible. Um, you know, MDs talking about nutrition when they've had almost zero nutritional training in their entire career. Anyway, don't get me on that one. But these newbies are criticizing Kennedy left and right, especially on X, but X can be a cesspool sometimes. So, that's to be expected. But these newbies criticizing him and talking about how he hasn't done anything and this and that. To me, when I look at it, and I've been following Kennedy since the early aughts. I got into vaccines through the ICPA. I did my fellowship in ICPA in 1999.
That's the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association.
Thank you. Yes, for those who did not know. Right around the last year of my schooling, I did a fellowship in pediatrics because that was what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus on kids, which I ended up not really doing that, but that was my goal. And with that, I don't remember who it was. One of the instructors was, you need to question the issue. Not you have to disagree with it and you have to believe anti-vaccine, which is what a lot of people think chiropractors are taught. They're not taught that at all. I have a lot of chiropractic friends who are very pro-vaccine. We don't talk much, but
the same.
but I know them.
The same.
But we are taught to question, and we're taught to use our brain critically. And so we were given information, and I looked at it. It opened up a gateway for me. I read Shot in the Dark. I read several other books, The Vaccine Guide, which I thought was an amazing book.
Shot in the
And
Dark, Barbara Loe Fisher, great book.
absolutely one of the OGs of this whole thing.
Which is
Uh,
NVIC, right? National Vaccine Information Council, or and NVIC. It's National Vaccine Information.
I should know that as
I
well.
don't know what the
And
C
I know
stands
it
for.
is NVIC though.
Yeah.
But the name of the website I think is 909shot.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
909shot.com I think is the actual website for that. But I started there and I started following Kennedy, and so I've met him 3 times, and I'm we're not friends. I would love to be friends with him, go hawking, sail on the boat. Uh, but I think I know his heart. I've
100%.
seen his heart, and I've seen his passion for this movement. And you are amazingly correct without him, we would not be where we are today. It 100%. But these, I look at him and I can see a very clear path for what he's trying to do. He's trying to set things up in a way where the people who are going to challenge him, no matter what he does, will have less of a leg to stand on, and they're challenging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's playing the long game. And I agree with you about his heart. I'm from New Jersey, so we are experts at finding fakes, at fugazis.
Fugazi, I like that.
He is no fugazi, my
Yeah.
friend. And he tells the story of he got into this whole fight of health freedom and checking out the vaccines and their efficacy and their safety, not by choice. He
Right.
said there were women that were crying and showing him pictures of their children that had died or were mutilated or normal until they got the vaccine, and say, hey, can you help us? Can you help us? And again, I often say it's interesting if I told you that the water in front of your child right now has mercury in it, you would never ever drink it.
Right.
But a lot of people, most people, I would say today, would inject it into their children because it was in certain vaccines. And so, he said, when I start to question vaccines, they call me an anti-vaxxer. He said, when I question mercury in fish, they didn't call me an anti-fisher, like
Right. Right. Right.
so he's like, it's not making any sense. And there's a woman here in New Jersey who's been a huge uh, mentor of mine, and she put a real face on it. Uh, Her last name is Stavola. Robin Stavola. Her daughter is the reason that there's a law in New Jersey called Holly's Law.
I am very
And
familiar with it. Yeah.
oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So the,
Yeah.
the bottom line of it, and I mean, it still sends chills up my spine. Her daughter was completely normal, got the MMR vaccine, the second booster, and immediately went into encephalitis. Her last words to the mom as the ambulance, she's screaming and crying, "Mommy, help." That's the last words she heard from her daughter. And so, like,
Yep.
you want to put a real face on this. You want to gaslight people like this and say that this is not real. You ask any mom what's going on with their kids, they know.
Yeah.
They know innately. They have an innate connection with their children. So, we owe it to people like Holly Stavola, that died as a result of the MMR vaccine. We owe it to do these safety studies that Bobby's been looking for. And
Right.
again, it's his heart. He's doing it because who wants to see these kids injured? Nobody, by the way, nobody wants a kid to die from measles. There's no question about that. No, nobody's into that. But if you study the literature behind it, much of that is due once again to the other topic that Bobby is passionate about now in the Maha movement is improving the quality of the food that we're eating. And
Right.
it's interesting. I worked in Peru for so many years, and when we talked about like yellow fever or some of the jungle diseases. When I was in the jungle, I was unvaccinated for any of the stuff, but when I was in the jungle, I'd ask, who gets this and dies from it? And it was always the poorest, impoverished people that didn't have access to good food and good clean
Malnourished.
water,
Yeah.
malnourished. And it's like
Yeah.
that's if you looked at the case in Texas, that's exactly along the same line. You look at the cases in the islands that they want to crucify Bobby over Samoa. It's always that same issue. So why would we inject something that we know is hurting a certain percentage, and maybe someday we're going to find out it's hurting everybody, but just at different levels, right?
Right, right,
Why would you want to inject something like that instead of focusing on um, increasing the inner strength of each one of our children so that they can adapt? And we know that measles, if you are infected with measles, that can help you with cancer, later on in life. So these are complicated issues, but we can't afford to have these emotional knee-jerk reactions anymore. Like, oh my God, cases of measles. Everybody needs to get vaccinated. Doesn't matter if what happened to Holly Stavola. That's just an acceptable loss. Like, why is it acceptable for Holly Stavola to die and over somebody dying of measles? Like, what gives the person dying from measles more importance than the person dying from the MMR vaccine? It's still a death. It's still tragic, and we owe it to ourselves to do more investigations. And it's not heretical because it's not a religion, right? It's not
right.
heresy to question vaccines because it shouldn't be a religion. It should be a scientific method, and that's the whole idea of let's question it. Why would anybody be against making something safer?
That whole idea of, and this goes back to one of the points earlier, was this idea of science is settled. There is no such thing as science is settled. So even if you do the proper studies, science still opens it up to say, we've done proper studies, we've shown this, but if you can do other studies that show me that I did something wrong here, please do that. It doesn't say, well, these were properly done and it shows this, so put a nail in it. We're never going to talk about this again. It's solved, it's settled, forget about it. Oh, no, wait, you can't open that jar again because we closed that jar. It doesn't work like that. Science is always questioning itself.
Well,
And that's the nature of science.
that's the whole reason of peer-reviewed journals, right? It's like,
Right.
hey, I
Supposed to
did
be,
these
yes.
studies, I'm publishing in them, right? So I'm welcoming criticism. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me how we can do it better so that we could advance together in humanity.
Right, right. Well, hopefully that's what we're going to actually create in the sense of what you just talked about. I mean, the criticisms of the studies from NIH and from all the journals, and even the former heads of the journals admit that there's a lot of corruption in the research that comes out. Hopefully that is going to change. And here's a question for you, because I'm going to shift this conversation a little bit. And this, of course, is just speculation, but I think you've got a good place to begin speculating from, is that with the changes that we've seen already, with the direction we feel things are going with Maha, I mean, we've got another 3.5 years, right? I mean, people are so wound up about this. I'm like, wait a minute, it's only been 5-6 months. Come on, guys. We got 3.5 years at least with Bobby, and maybe more with Bobby doing other things. How do you see that shifting, not just healthcare, okay, but think about it as chiropractic in the sense of perception of alternative, you know, Reggie used to say, we're not an alternative to anything, so don't call us alternative care, right? But you get what I'm saying. The natural world, alternative medicine, chiropractic's role in that. Where do you see that shifting things?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with what Reggie said. We're not an alternative to
Right.
anything because um, there is no alternative to the removal of vertebral subluxation. The chiropractors
Right.
are the only ones that can do that, right? There's nobody else that's highly trained to make that happen. But I see this, and again, Dr. Donnie Epstein, one of my mentors in the network chiropractic world, takes care of Tony Robbins, and Tony
Yep.
Robbins is interested in one thing: optimal expression, baby, on every aspect and every component. That's what he's about. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's good for him, it's good for everybody. So, Donnie Epstein told me one time, the quality of your questions determine the quality of your life. And I think a couple things are going to happen with this Maha movement. I think what's going to be exposed is the level of corruption. And once that level of corruption is exposed, I think that's starting to denucleate the very famous appeal to authority fallacy of I have these credentials, I'm an expert, I cannot be corrupted. Well, we've seen that it has been, so I think that's good. We have to understand that um, this is one of the things that Bobby says all the time is that for the modernized world, we have some of the worst health outcomes.
Yeah.
And as President Trump used to say, you're fired, right? You're fired. If you're not getting good health outcomes, you're fired.
That's
You know,
wonderful. Yeah.
why do you want to continue to be a blockage
Right.
to progress, right? I mean, this is what cracks me up is the Democrats would call themselves progressives. Yes, let's progress. By the way, I used to be a Democrat.
Same here.
I'm
Same
part
here.
of that walk away movement because
Right.
it became not about the people. It became about the elite. It became not about freedom. It became about control, and so that was not the Democratic way of being. And that's how Bobby grew up, with his family was freedom was it, man. And that's how Republicans and Democrats used to be in total agreement. The Constitution is it, man. That's how we do it. Like we can disagree on how we spend money, where we spend money, and we could be friends, right? But we can't disagree on the basic core fundamentals of freedom, and that is where we've shifted from a movement towards radical socialism, communism, and that's not our country, right? Versus my daughter's 12 years old. She was saying, "Dad, why do I tear up a little bit every time I do the Pledge of Allegiance?" She asked me that this morning, and I said, and by the way, we're tomorrow will be 1 year out from President Trump almost being assassinated.
Right.
I
Right.
was at a Fourth of July festival here in Freehold, New Jersey, when that news came across the wire, and we were about ready to watch fireworks. And I cried because I never saw somebody more focused on restoring freedom in our country. I mean, I and you were, I think, the first Americans probably in history to have a president of the United States say to us, we've had patience. We've demonstrated a lot of patience now with people not getting vaccinated. But our patience is wearing thin.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
President Joe Biden.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I sat as an American watching the leader of the free world
Right.
say he was losing patience with me because I did not want to take an experimental toxin into my body.
Yeah.
How far down have we gone, right? And so
Right.
when Trump came in, that was a momentous part of history because he basically said, and now he has the political savvy to actually clean the swamp. And that's what Kennedy is being involved in as far as the health components go. So I think this, we're at a point, the pandemic showed us that the experts don't know everything. And I think the results that we're starting to analyze, because who cares about anything you're doing in healthcare if you're not analyzing and modifying things to get better results, right? We have to develop that Japanese mindset of Kaizen, that we're in
Sure.
a state of
Yes.
constant improvement. Dr. BJ Palmer in chiropractic said, whenever you think you're ripe, that's when you start to rot. And I think that's what's happened. We've said our people are right. We've got it right with this, right? Vaccination saved us. Vaccination caused us to be a healthy nation. And meanwhile, we let the back door open for food companies to put whatever garbage that they could legally get away with
Yeah.
into our. I was just the other day saying that every time I go outside of this country, I feel so much better. I eat what would be considered crap food. When I'm going to be going to Italy again. I'm going to be eating all bread, cold cuts, pasta. I'm going to feel great because it's not poison bread, poison
Yeah.
pasta,
Right. Right.
poison cold cuts. And so, they've messed with our food. They've messed with our children's bloodstreams with these mandated toxins, and that hasn't worked. So you're fired, right? And so we're going to start asking questions. How can we start working with that vitalistic force? Let's recognize that there is a vitalistic force. When you're alive, you have the ability to heal, function, adapt, and express your life optimally. So what kinds of things will interfere with that optimal expression of life? Well, we know that toxins in the food will do it. We know that a lack of exercise will do it. We know that a negative mindset will do it. We know that a vertebral subluxation will do it. And here's the big thing for chiropractic, and why I think if Kennedy's really positioned with chiropractic, he always says, I love chiropractic. And he's had great results with chiropractic in his family and personally. I think that once we start to ask the question why, and that was what Dee Dee Palmer asked, why do some people get sick at sitting at the same dinner table with the same
Right.
bacteria, the
Yeah.
same why are some sick and some are not sick? Well, it's because that internal force, that internal resistance is higher in some people and not. Why? Well, because the nerve system is the master control system of the body. Okay. So the nerve system controls directly and indirectly the immune function. It controls the digestive function. It shows the cardiovascular function. The endocrine system. Every single system is directly or indirectly controlled by the nerve system. So an intelligent individual, a scientist, would say, if that's true, and we know that it is, shouldn't we be looking for potential obstruction to that nerve system? Because if there's an obstruction in that nerve system, right, and it always cracks me up, if somebody has a tumor in the spine and it's pressing on the nerves, we got to get it out of there. We got to remove that tumor. Oh my God, that's so dangerous, right? Let's get that tumor out immediately. You can't have nerves being obstructed there. The nerve's going to die. What about the organ going to that nerve? But when we have misaligned spinal bones that are causing irritation or obstruction to those nerves, oh, well, as long as you don't have back pain, who cares, right?
Right. Right.
So I think once we start asking those questions about how can we work with that vital force, I think chiropractic is going to come to the forefront, and they're going to start talking about alternative medicine as medicine. That'll be the alternative. Why wouldn't you have your nerve system checked for obstruction first if that's the master control system? Why wouldn't you check your diet to make sure that it's supportive of that vitalistic force? Why wouldn't you check the way you're thinking, the way you're moving, the exercise to fertilize to strengthen and empower that vital force that uses the nerve system? And then, and only when all those things are not getting the results that we want, we go look at something maybe palliative, something that we have to, maybe we have to remove the obstruction in something else. Maybe I could get adjusted from now till 2060. My pancreas is dead. I need to inject insulin, right? But we know, and I know you've seen this, well, I can't assume for you, but I've seen this with tons of patients, that I've had people that inject insulin, and once they start to get adjusted, that level of insulin can disappear, or in certain cases, in I think it's type 2 diabetes. In type 1, I've never seen it disappear, but the amount of that insulin is reduced because the body starts to use it more efficiently. And we know that insulin that's not yours, injected from outside in, is a toxin to the body, right? The body
Right.
recognizes as not it, and it causes inflammation. So even that, and I listened to Heidi Havok, a chiropractic researcher, and she said that, what fascinates me about doing chiropractic research? She's out of the New Zealand College of Chiropractic, and Christopher Ken has said the same thing out of Sherman College, is every single function I've ever studied in chiropractic and compared the group that gets adjusted, the group that gets a sham adjustment, and the group that doesn't get adjusted. The group that gets the adjustment, no matter what function, it's throwing a ball, it's lifting something, what the strength involved, the immune function, the pancreatic function, whatever function we study, the group that receives chiropractic care functions better. Whatever it is that we're studying. And I mean, there's been studies done with HIV people, folks that are suffering from HIV, that their immune function improves after they're getting chiropractic adjustments. There's fascinating research now that is out about the length of the telomere. They say size doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah.
Size doesn't matter. It does in telomeres. Size definitely matters in telomeres. The longer your telomere, the better the quality of your life and the longer of your life. And they're studying people that get chiropractic care. They're noticing an extension of the telomere. The telomere starts to grow longer. So that's huge. Imagine the
That's
repercussions.
that's really huge. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about actually starting to affect a person's DNA through a chiropractic adjustment. I mean, that's gigantic. And then, of course, you've got studies of every other kind. Again, You name this the body system. Show me somebody that's getting adjusted versus somebody that's not getting adjusted. The person getting adjusted always function better. And I mean, listen, dollars and cents. We know because this is what I hear all the time. Oh, chiropractic. I don't believe in it, and I think that's the most hilarious statement on the planet. It's
It's
like
not religion.
electricity. I don't believe in it. Okay, well, you don't have to. That's the good news.
It still works.
And so, I've had two interesting experience with I don't believe in it. One is professional athletes, right? Their performance, an optimized nerve system could mean the difference between gold, silver, bronze, or nothing, right? So
Right.
there's no coincidence why every single sports team in the world of high level is under chiropractic care. It's not because they believe in it. It's because it's getting results, right?
Yep, exactly.
Results means more money, more money. Show me the money, right? That's the one thing. The other thing is I've had the opportunity to go spend some time with Dr. Jay Komarick.
Oh, yes.
He's
Wonderful.
world superhero. He's
Yeah,
probably top in the world in animal adjusting.
absolutely.
Now, if you've ever had the experience to work with horses, horses are very well known as being skittish animals. They freak out, they're very nervous. And I had the opportunity to go out to California and work with Jay when he was taking care of these Arabian horses. That, by the way, each one of these horses were worth like 12 to 15 times the value of my house. Like unbelievable animals, right? Gorgeous, and high level performers. The first time Jay would approach them, he's really good at approaching them. So they're nervous, right? And then he adjusts their neck. The next day you come back, the horse comes up like, "Hey, can you do that again? What you just did? That was so awesome." So we know, and I've had experience with dogs that couldn't walk, and I started adjusting them, and they walk again. You have to ask the question: what is the horse belief system? What is the
Ah,
dog's belief
good
system?
point. Very good point. Yeah.
It's actually an antithesis. They're initially like, "Don't touch me, don't crack me, don't do anything." Right? I'm nervous. I don't know what you're trying to do to help me. Right? It seems like you're out to hurt me. And then the next time they're like, "Oh yes, please, I'll take some more of that." So again, what convinces an animal? The results that
Exactly.
they have
Yeah.
going on. What convinces a human? I've had so many people. Doc, I got to tell you, I don't believe in any of this chiropractic thing. I'm only here because my daughter said you walk on water. So I pour a glass of water on the ground and I walk across. I get, they're absolutely right. So lay down, lay down and let's start getting you connected. I had when I was in Peru, I had the equivalent of the United States, the like what Colin Powell used to be, right? Like the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right?
Right, right, right.
I had the top military guy once. I went into what was considered the Pentagon in Peru. I was working in Lima, Peru. I knew this guy was a big deal. They called my office and they said, "Hey, we want you to see a colonel here." I was like, "Okay, I'll drive over there." And they're like, "No, no, no, we're going to send somebody for you." And I was in a BMW that was, bulletproof, and I had a lead car, a chase car, and motorcycles. And they took me down into the depths of the Pentagon, for Peru. And I'm saying, this ain't no colonel I'm going to see. And so I get down there and I walk through, and they had the whole border of Peru and Ecuador. They were in a land war at the time. And so they had a whole example of that laid out in paper mache, all the points and everything. And I just keep going down into the belly of the beast. And they went through 50 checks of my body and everything. And I get in and I get into this large room that's filled with physiotherapy and, electronic stuff and all this stuff that's, again, has its time and place. It's great. And this guy comes in a red jumpsuit speaking perfect English. And he goes, "Hey, you're the gringo that adjusts people's spines?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't look old enough to even do that." I said, "Well, thanks, I guess. I guess that means I can take care of you for the rest of your life." And he goes, "You see all this stuff?" He goes, "You see all this physiotherapy and everything?" He goes, "This is all a bunch of shit." And I said, "You and I are going to get along really good, my friend." And then he says, "I've been taking pills." The guy was a paratrooper, right? So he had all these heavy falls.
Impacts, yeah.
So L5, S1, L4, all destroyed. I'd say, he says, "What are you going to do for me? You young, this young kid." I said, "I don't know yet. I got to get some films on you." Well, I got all kinds of films. I said, no, I need some very specific films, upper cervical practitioner. So he had an atlas that was probably in Los Angeles, and we're in Lima, Peru. That's how far out it was. I mean, it was
Uh,
like freezing on the brainstem. And I'll never forget this. He comes into, they had to shut off the whole blocks around my office for him to come in. I had to start seeing him during lunchtime because he was wrecking my patient flow, you know? So when I had to come in, so he comes into my office and the first time, and he's got two guys with guns, one standing behind me, the other one's in front of me.
do it right.
And I'm saying, "Oh, please, Palmer, come right through me," like. And I took his atlas, and his life started to change in so many ways. And it was funny because then I was taking care of I took care of the general of the Air Force, the general of the Army, and the general of the Navy. So I basically, I had control of the brain stems of the entire military of Peru at one point. And that got me into politics there, like adjusting all those people because they all want to have the best life. And that was the amazing thing about chiropractic, what I found is if you can express it and then you can deliver the goods, people will come out of the woodwork and they want what we have. Sometimes I hear chiropractors saying, "Oh, my biggest problem is getting new patients." I'm like, I get it, but it's not because there's a lack of new patients, right? There's a lack of amount of people that understand who you are, what you're doing, and why. And so the question you got to ask yourself every day is, and these are the two questions that rule my life. I wake up in the morning and I say, one, I ask this question: how can I serve more people? That's my focus. My focus in life is how can I serve more people? And I found that the more I serve, the better my life gets in so many ways, right? So, how can I serve more people? And then the second question I have for myself is, how can I serve the people I'm already blessed to be serving? How can I serve them better? So if you see, I think, and this is a big danger in the next generation coming up the pike in chiropractic, it's the me generation. Like us that are involved in
Yeah.
politics. It's like, I'm not going to get involved in politics. What is it there for me? That's not going to help build my practice. I'm not getting involved in supporting the schools. I see some of the speakers that resonate now on the circuit that resonate with this me generation. And you look and you say, well, you're a great speaker, but what have you done to support chiropractic education? What have you done to support chiropractic research? What have you done to support chiropractic politically? That's really what matters if we're gonna leave this thing better than we found it. Dr. Tom Gilardi, the founder of Sherman College of Chiropractic,
100%. Yeah. Great man.
he would say that like supporting your political organization and your school and research, that's your rent. Like you've been gifted with being a chiropractor, but you got to pay the rent. You got to give back. You think about BJ Palmer could have totally retired from chiropractic. Why did he put up with all this crap that he did until his dying day?
Right.
Because he knew he'd been blessed. And that though my dad used to say, to those that have been given blessings, they have a moral obligation to give those blessings back out to the world. And from what I've seen with chiropractic with my family, I know that there's people waking up today that are not going to be here by the end of the day because they didn't know about chiropractic. There's people
Gotcha.
that are in getting surgery right now that are going to be paralyzed for life. And they're going to ask you and me, how come, doc? How come no one ever told me this? The doc told me, don't even go to a chiropractor. Why did they tell me that? Crying, tears streaming down their things. There's people that are drugging their children right now on all kinds of symptoms because they don't even know the importance of chiropractic. They know that they should take their kids to the dentist, right, to maintain the teeth. And we can live without teeth, but they're
Hmm.
completely ignoring the spine. That is the primary region where nerves can be obstructed. And that limits the children's ability to adapt, to grow, to thrive. And that's where I think, you asked, where are we going with the Maha movement? Once you start asking the right questions, the answers become obvious. And I think what's going to happen someday, Dr. Nichols, is when a child is born, you're going to hear, like now you hear, oh, who's the pediatrician? Oh, and they start getting teeth. Oh, who's the
Who's
dentist?
the chiropractor?
That's what's going to happen. They're going to say, who's the chiropractor? And the person's not going to respond, chiropractor for my baby? Why would I do that? They don't have back pain or neck pain. And the answer is going to be, well, of course I have a chiropractor. The nerve system is crucial. for my baby to develop optimally. Of course, I want to make sure it's free from obstruction since birth. Why wouldn't I want to do that? What are you almost like you'd have to be crazy not to have chiropractic care. And that's, sometimes when I'm at a party, I think it's funny. Someone will say, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, I'm a chiropractor." Thank God I don't need you. So I'd be like, okay, thank God you don't need me. Is it because you don't have a spine or you don't have a life force? Why would you not need me? And that's what I often say to patients is like, it's not a question whether the person needs chiropractic or not. It's a question of how much damage and degeneration they're going to allow to occur in their spine and nervous system until they start to detain it and start to reverse it and then optimize it. And that's, I think, the idea of chiropractic. One of the things that I think chiropractic novices are afraid of. I don't know if you've ever heard this question from a patient. They'll fold their arms usually and they'll lean in. "Doctor, what guarantee do you give me that this is going to get
I
better?"
love that.
Now, the novice is like defense, defense, defense. They pull back and then they start, well, scientific studies show this and that and the other. I lean in. I lean right into that and I go, "Here's the guarantee I'm going to give you. If you continue to do absolutely nothing about these vertebral subluxations, you can welcome more damage and degeneration into your life. Because there is not a pill, there is not an injection, and there is not a surgery that is going to correct these vertebral subluxations. The only solution to this vertebral subluxation is a specific scientific chiropractic adjustment. And I can do that in this office."
That's a great answer.
And that's it. And that
That's a
is
great answer.
and that is what chiropractic. I'm actually working on creating. I don't know if you've ever seen. I think I'm going to be filming this soon. Do you ever see the? And by the way, it's trademark, so don't try to steal it. But
No
did you ever
problem.
see?
No problem.
Did you ever see? I just think it's hilarious. We saw it a little bit during the pandemic. There's a guy who's dressed up like a professor, and he has a big whiteboard, and on one side it says "Find out," and the other side says "Fuck around." Right?
Fuck around.
The more you
Yeah.
fuck around, see, the more you're going to find
The more
out.
you find out.
I'm going to do something like that with spinal degeneration and nerve interference. Like, the more you ignore your spine and don't go see the chiropractor, the more you're going to fuck around and find out with the damage
Exactly.
and degeneration of what we're going to have. Because that's really what it is. It's not a question of, doc, you think I need chiropractic care? Yes. If you have a spine and nervous system, it's like, hey, I have teeth. You think I need a dentist? Yes, you do. Of course you do. Like, why wouldn't you need it? So that's, I think, where we're going in the future. If we could future pace, I think that eventually in the healthcare system, they're going to realize that chiropractic care from birth is going to save us a ton of money and a ton of suffering and a ton of lack of efficiency and a ton of missed work days and a ton of production that we could be experiencing if we just embraced it. And it's been said, we were up against, medicine started out with natural, and they
Oh,
moved
of
away
course.
from it with the invention of pharmaceuticals. But I think if we go back to the natural and we start recognizing just how smart and intelligent that was, we've cleaned up. We learned a lot about sanitation. That was great. We learned a lot about nutrition. That's fantastic. We need to learn and apply the understanding of the importance of the nerve system as the master control system of the body and where it can be obstructed by spinal misalignments. And once we recognize that we don't live in a bubble, right? We all have accidents. We all have falls. We all have stress, bad postures, sitting and sleeping wrong. We all do that, right? And that causes these spinal misalignments, what we call vertebral subluxations. And over time, that pressure or obstruction on the nerves just wreak havoc in our life. And instead of treating the effects of a body that's malfunctioning, we could start to really look at the origin or the cause. And I think that's the vitalistic movement that we're seeing in Maha, where people are starting to say, why on earth, with all the abundance and riches that we have, why are we the sickest, some of the sickest people, and our kids are some of the sickest generation we've ever seen, with all our advances technologically? And this is I once heard a farmer speaking so humbly about this. He said, we've become a country of technocrats. And
I've
he
heard
goes,
that. Yeah.
Once you stop asking the question why, and this is why, some people look at philosophy of chiropractic as, oh, it's just, a belief system. And it's not really that, because it's philosophy asks the question, why are you doing things? And
Yeah.
he said in farming techniques, we've stopped asking the question why, and we've just started embracing more technology, more technology. It's a mechanistic approach to farming. And he said that's what's killing the world and our nation and our health. He says, once you stop asking the question why, there's devastating consequences to that. And I think a long time ago, with the advance of big pharma profits, the why is profits for big pharma. That's been our why, and we've seen the results of that in healthcare. I think when we start asking the question, why are our kids sicker than ever before, and we start getting the answers to that, and we start addressing the cause, it's from nerve system obstruction. It's from toxins in the water. It's from toxins in the injections. It's from negativity. It's from not teaching kids that they were born to be healthy, and what are the strategies that they can initiate learning in school, from day one. When I was a kid, they really pushed doing pull-ups. Remember they had this presidential fitness.
Presidential fitness,
They
right?
don't push that anymore.
Yeah.
They don't push that anymore. So it's like we got to get back to a country where we start. I mean, we start caring about our kids again. That our kids are not just experimental fodder for a pharmaceutical industry that doesn't care about them. I mean, it's amazing how I see people online defending these criminal organizations. They're proven to be criminally negligent
Right.
and obfuscating, locking away their studies for 75 years. Why on earth would you do that if you were about transparency and clarity and optimal results? You'd welcome as you mentioned, you'd welcome the criticism because you want to do better, right? And this is the whole thing: is their goal is not to do better. Their goal is to maintain corporate profits. And that
100%.
once you have corporate capture, and that's what I thought Robert F. Kennedy has said it so brilliantly, the idea of corporate capture, that these three-letter organizations that control our lives and our healthcare, like WHO, CDC, NIH, HHS, once they're corporately captured, we are fucked. And the only way to unfuck ourselves is to eliminate that aspect of those three-letter organizations and really and truly make them authorities that are looking to find out what the cause is, what the origin is, and not looking to get a job in big pharma after I complete it here and have that revolving door.
Revolving door.
Profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going with Maha. I think we are moving towards asking the right questions to get the right results, because the results we have right now set us up perfectly for you're fired.
Well, you opened up the door on this that I wanted to go through. You were talking about our future, the students that you're seeing coming out now, and it's been interesting because I've got I found out just through circumstance that I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we do network in my office. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
I will say when I first started thinking about having you on the flip side, I was telling myself, how is it I've never met Dr. Schubel? How is it I've never met? Because you're good friends with Danny and Rochelle,
Sure.
who I'm good friends with as well, and I've known them for years because of network chiropractic. And I've been to Sherman a couple of times for homecoming and things. It's like, how did we not met? Judy Campanella and my wife and I, good friends, and Joe Strauss, good friends, and been to the office. We're probably crossing each other as we're going through the door.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
we never met. But there's actually a new chiropractic college in Kentucky.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
And I had not even known about that. So I've got some students coming into our office now, who are either driving the 2 hours to come up to get network, or they live somewhere in that area. And through that, and I will tell you this too, I even know a couple of people who graduated from Sherman and they've never heard of straight versus mixer, which I'm kind of glad about that, because we don't need that
And frankly, it's a misnomer, right?
100%.
Something totally different now than it did back then.
100%. And so I'm kind of glad about that, but it also reflected kind of their lack of understanding of where we've been and where we are, and a little bit of their lack of understanding of even some of the philosophy. And of course, they, like I said earlier, they've lost connection with all the people that came before them, as far as the people that we mentioned before, Fred Barge, Sigafus, etc. What would be your advice? Okay, now for those watching, you've got now two different numbers I've seen, because in a bio I saw 32 offices, but I
That's
also
correct.
saw on one of the websites 20. So that needs to be
Yeah,
updated.
it needs to be updated.
So 32 offices, and those are around the world, right?
Three
Not
different
just in,
countries. Yeah.
okay. Um, that's some huge success. Huge success. That's way up there as far as when we talk about who's has the most successful types of practices. You're way up there on that list, if not at the top. So, um, students coming out of school right now, young chiropractors, struggling with trying to build their office and get things going. What would be some of the top philosophy? Obviously, so you're going to say philosophy. That's fine. Talk about that. But um, wow, did you hear that?
No, what was
My
it?
God, must be a thunderstorm happening outside, because it just sounded like a bomb went off.
They're
Uh,
they're they're geoengineering the
yeah,
place to cut this interview short.
Texas, like a Texas flood out here outside my house. But what would be, you've got students out there who are, about to graduate, or you got people who just graduated and who may be worried about what to do, curious about what to do. It's notorious for chiropractic schools to produce maybe a good chiropractor, but not a great business person. So they know how to adjust, hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully, but they didn't know nothing about how to run a business and what to do. So they get out there, they throw up their shingle, and now they're lost. What do they do? So what's the advice that you can give? And let me give you one other thing to put into your equation here. Advice also that may not cost them a lot of money to do, because they may not have a lot of money to put into their practice at the beginning.
Okay. Um, that's a big
It
question.
is.
We'll unpack it right now. But before we do that, I do want to mention I did not know that you were a network practitioner, and I'm astonished as well that we've never crossed paths.
Now
And
let me throw a curveball to
go
you
ahead.
too. When I graduated, okay, the first 3 years or so, I was a Blair upper cervical.
Oh, wow, how interesting.
So I got turned on to Blair while I was still in school, even though we didn't teach upper cervical at Cleveland. But there was a Blair club, and Drew, who, if you're listening out there, got me involved in Blair upper cervical. And so I learned it to the best of my ability without having a lot of help, and went and thought I was getting help with a chiropractor who did Blair up in San Francisco area. Basically, all I was getting was a room to work in, and so I really didn't have much help at all. He helped him with the X-rays a little bit. That was about it. Otherwise, I was learning as I failed, which is that's called practice, right?
Of course.
But then at the same time, I was taking seminars about network, because my wife, who's a chiropractor, she graduated from Life West. Um, she was really into network, so she was kind of leading me into that. And it wasn't until we had our first child and I watched our network practitioner work on him and make these contacts on his pelvis and pull those contacts up into space and then play him like a freaking puppet.
Right.
And I looked at that and I said, damn, I got to do that. I've got to do that. And so I switched gears and have not looked back since. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, perfect lead into what I was about to say was giving a shout out to the network crowd,
Yeah.
because I often say that network chiropractic is one of my secrets to success. It's one of my secret weapons, I think, and I do believe that when we get to the point where chiropractic is accepted, like everybody has a chiropractor, I think the next step, I think actually network is the most advanced technique that is available in chiropractic. Just so you know, I don't practice it, but that's how I get taken care of.
Ah,
I am an upper cervical practitioner, and I remember when I was first invited to go see this guy, Dr. Donnie Epstein, that obviously can't adjust. That's why he's doing network, right? He can't move bones. He can't do anything. I'm being facetious, right?
Oh, I get you. I get you.
In Life University, I went down to Atlanta, and I watched him do a toggle, and it was like this. You want to see it?
Yeah.
You want to see it again? It was the fastest toggle I ever saw in my life. And I said, okay, this
Yeah.
guy knows what he's doing, right? Like,
Yeah. He's a master toggler. He's a
yeah,
master toggler. He really is.
he did not go into network because he can't adjust, you know.
Right.
Anyway, I wanted to say it is a phenomenal technique, and I'm so grateful to Donnie Epstein and Danny and Rochelle Knowles, you know, for really moving. Danny Knowles has done phenomenal work with network practitioners. You know, talking about like what we're going to talk about right now. One of the things I saw with network practitioners is they would be brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I mean, unbelievable practitioners, but poor and unable to make a living.
Yep.
And Danny Knowles brought in business systems,
Yeah.
and he could communicate it in a way that the network crowd, which are, you know, a little bit different than everyone else, right?
Yeah.
He was able to modify the communication, the system strategies to help make network practitioners more effective in their practices, and having a bigger impact in the community by having, you know, more financial wherewithal, more financial ability to thrive, and more personal freedom. So shout out to the whole network crowd.
And I plan on getting Danny and Rochelle both on here soon. That's one of my goals too. I really want to have a conversation with them because you're right, wealth of knowledge, not only in the technique, but in business for sure. They have a hugely thriving office in Boulder, Colorado.
They definitely have it dialed in.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a new practitioner, and you know, where should they be going as far as learning as fast as they can how to be as successful as they can. Again, I think one of the well, we'll talk about this a little bit. I think the number one thing that we have to start out with, and this is why the philosophy is so important. Um, Philosophy is why you do everything, right? And so everything that you do is based on a philosophy, and everything that you're talking to patients about or practice members about is based on a philosophy. Um, Again, my mentor, Dr. Sid Williams, used to say, "Boy, you got to learn how to talk with authority," right? And I had no idea what he was even saying.
He was like a Southern preacher.
Yeah, and he would say, "Boy, you got to learn how to talk with authority." He'd say that over and over, and what is this so important? I want to learn how to adjust. Boy, you got to learn how to talk with authority. And what he was saying in English was, boy, you have to learn how to talk with authority. And I didn't understand how vital that was until I graduated from chiropractic college, and you go out into the real world, right, where people are going to give you pushback.
Right.
And you know, in any communication, I become over the years an expert in communication. I study a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. Your body language rats you out. You know, whatever your belief system is, your body language is telling the other person what you truly believe. And so if you understand the philosophy and you're able to market differentiate, if you can differentiate yourself between what they've been accustomed to and why what it is you're doing is a superior form of care in relation to what they've had before, and you can express that with authority, you will have people lined up to come see you. That's really the crucial key. Show me somebody that can communicate chiropractic with authority. I'll show you somebody that has a successful practice. And I'm going to tell you, sadly, because I thought when I was in school, I thought the people that were the best adjusters are going to be successful. The people that knew the science forward and back, they could quote you all the research articles. They were going to be the most successful. You know, the philosophers, even the philosophers, I thought they would be the most successful. I've seen all three of those science, artists, and philosophical masters of those three fail miserably in practice. It's the communicators that win. So if you could communicate the philosophy, science, and art of chiropractic with absolute authority, like here's the 10 commandments. Medical doctors don't have that problem. They said, here's the 10 commandments. I'm giving them to you. You got a problem? Talk to God. Okay, I'm just the messenger over here. You know? That's that level of certainty that we need to develop. Some of us are even still saying like we're the alternative to healthcare. You know, like Reggie Gold said, why are you saying that? You know, like why would you even think that? So you have to know who you are, what you're doing, and why. And then the second thing is you have to learn business systems. I could not have 32 offices in 3 different countries. Okay, right now, the closest office that I manage is 1,500 miles away. Like that's the closest. I have offices 4,000 miles away from me. So the only way I can manage this is through business systems. And I remember the book that was pivotal, that changed my life, was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Love that book.
Great
Love
book,
that book. Great book.
great book.
One
And
of the best of that entire type of genre.
changed my life
Yeah.
because it showed me how to scale what it is that I was doing. And if you want to scale anything you're doing, you have to systematize it, right? So what I found, and in my development in chiropractic, I learned very quickly that your mindset is key. Your mindset is key in anything you do in life. And that was one of the reasons I bought the book, or I wrote the book. I think you should buy it. I wrote the book,
Yeah.
Cast to be Chiropractors. That was my presentation of what the mindset of a successful chiropractor is all about. And mindset is so hugely important. It's why when people go to Mile High or Cal Jam and then they go home, their practice shoots through the roof, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and this is the thing. They have not changed any of their systems. They've just brought a higher level of energy to those systems. And success is about energy and structure. The more energy you can bring to the structure, the more exponential power that thing has to explode and advance and grow, because you have more resources available to you with the energy and the structure. But here's what happens. They go to the seminars. I'm sure you've seen people like this. Go to the seminar, they kick ass at practice for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they start dropping off again.
I've been that person.
Okay. And by the way, me too.
Yeah.
And so what happens is they're using the same systems that have created this disaster that they're living in, right?
Yeah.
So they've just added more energy. So now they have to go and get an outside in pump up to go back to create more energy in the system that they're in. So what I developed, and this is why I wrote the second book, because the first book, it was like Cast to be Chiropractors, because I saw chiropractors had a low self-esteem. They weren't powerful. They didn't speak with authority. So I said, I got to write a book to help them be more powerful and to empower more people and be able to speak with authority. But then I realized that's not enough. I have to show them the business systems to grow, scale, and expand their practice. And so I wrote that second book, Schubel's Holy Grail of Business. Both are available on Amazon in Spanish and in English. And I developed 5 core fundamental business systems that everybody, no matter who they are, and by the way, I've used this with attorneys that ask me to help them, accountants, like other professions use my 5 core elements to growing and scaling their business. So it doesn't just apply to chiropractic. The first one is mindset. We talked about that. We could do a whole show just on mindset, right? The second business system is marketing, because it doesn't matter how great you are. If you don't have any practice members coming into the office, who cares? So there's a series of systems that you use, and it deals with having multiple lines in the water and knowing how to tweak each one of those on a daily basis. So in my life,
this goes back to what you did before you started talking about these 5 steps. You were talking about the ability to communicate, right?
exactly.
But then it's got to be, where are you putting that communication? So that's
Correct.
your marketing, right?
Correct. So marketing is, you have to be able to bring in new clients, new practice members, new patients, whatever you want to call them, in whatever business that you're in. The third thing is sales, because who cares? And we call it not sales, we call it conversion, right? Who cares how many new patients you have if you have 20 come in and only one buys a care plan with you? Well, what
Right.
we do, and not only that, the way I look at conversion is this. I think in order to have high levels of conversion, you first have to realize, and this is back to the mindset, what's at stake? Are you just treating back pain and neck pain? That's really not that much at stake.
Right.
But if a person doesn't buy a care plan with you, what do you think?
What's the cost to them?
Right. And I know most chiropractors in the me generation think the cost to me, like, oh, I can't make my Ferrari payment. I can't make my mansion payment. I can't go on nice vacations. I'm losing. I'm going to suggest to you that the more you think about them, the less of them you're going to lose. The more they're on your mind, the more of them will be in your life. And so when I'm working on a conversion, what some people will call the sales process, I'm very cognizant as to what's at stake. And the way I look at it is this: that conversion communication that I'm going to be using, if I fail, that person is going to be condemned. That's a very strong word. They are condemned to a life of taking pills, putting in injections, and cutting things out. That's going to be their options for healthcare. And I can't allow that to happen on my watch. So, one of the things that I did to become very good at chiropractic communication was videotape myself, because
Ah, okay.
the video does not lie. And if you think about this. You know, we're having a big soccer event here in New Jersey right now. I don't know if it's like I don't follow soccer, but it's like, let's say
Right.
the World Cup, right? If I'm training for the World Cup, it's the most important game of my life as a soccer player. What do you think I'm doing on the lead up to that game? I'm watching videos of my prior performances to see where I made errors and how I can improve.
Gotcha.
I'm watching the enemy to see what things they do commonly and how I could take advantage of those weaknesses. So I'm looking at games. I'm looking at games on the video so that I can improve my performance when it's game time. Funny how chiropractors don't do that. It's the most important game of this person's life who's in front of you, and you're thinking about you. Oh, like, you know, about the, I hope I get the sale. I hope I get something. I'm going to suggest to you the easiest sale is when you're not looking to get, but when you're looking to give. And that's how I look at it: is there's not a pill, there's not an injection, and there's not a surgery that's going to correct this vertebral subluxation. I'm it, baby, and I'm here to give it to you and give it to you good. So let's make it happen, right? And this is my attitude is not, is that okay with you? Is that I do what they call assume the sale. Like for me, I know if you're in my office, it's not like an accident of the universe. You're in my office because there's something that you need that you can't get from the guy down the street. Even if it's a medical referral, there's some divine reason why you're in my office. So I accept that. So I'm not nervous at all. And by the way, signs of nervousness, and we're going to get into that. I mean, there's so many systems here, Dr. Nichols. It's like you could go crazy with it. But
And
like,
we'll have to, I'll have you back on where you can actually get to a deeper dive with it.
all
That
right,
would
maybe
actually be great.
we'll do a deep dive if you want in the future on those 5 core elements. Because
Yeah.
man, we could go for hours just on those.
I think that
And
would be
I
awesome.
do weekend seminars just on that. So we talked about marketing. We talked about conversion. We talked about mindset. Now let's talk about the fourth element is communication, and that's all about the communication of retention, right? How do we keep these people under care for life so that they can experience the optimal expression of their own lives throughout the course of their lives? How can they get the big idea? And also, how can we generate referrals? And, you know, one of the things I think when you sent me some questions about, you know, what we're going to be talking about today was what could you do for free? You know, what could you do that didn't cost you any money? And I got to tell you, just talking and talking with an authoritative and caring and looking to give, love, and serve and inspire mindset will generate more new practice members in your office and will grow your practice. So you ready for this? Most chiropractors that I see come in, do the adjustment. Thanks, Bill. See you later. You know, good to see you, Bill. You know, great to see you, Bill. That's it. Not me. Bill, great to see you. Let's check your spine and see how the vertebral subluxations are today. So immediately focusing on what we're worried about, what we're concerned about. And then every single chiropractic adjustment, this is a communication strategy. Every single chiropractic adjustment is congruent with the release of the optimal life expression. So I see doctors, it's like, it looks like they're, you know, patting down dough, you know, like crack, 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 robotic, right? With me, it's like crack, phenomenal. Wow. You know, even if I'm doing a network, ooh, that was awesome. Let me check that out. Ooh, nice release there.
I
Hey,
don't know who it was. Someone used to have a bell in their office.
I love it.
And so they would like, bing, 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 you know, like they just fixed the subluxation. They would ring the bell.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. And I have to tell you, I have a trademark thing in Spanish, and they absolutely love it. One of the things that gringos they find hilarious about us is that we can't roll an R. We can't.
Yeah, yeah.
So after I'm finished and the objective indicators of vertebral subluxation have diminished or have disappeared, and there's nothing else I can do, I say, that's what they call reconnected, right? So, and I'm telling you, Dr. Nichols, it sounds like the craziest thing in the world, but think about this. McDonald's says, I'm loving it. What are you loving, the cancer or the heart disease, right? But like, this is the whole thing of marketing and branding and communication and how it plays in. When I say that's what we call reconnected, they love it that I'm trilling the R and I can't do it right, so it sounds funny, right? And the second thing they love is that I'm connecting back to the big idea of what it is that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
We're reconnecting them to their optimal life force. And then the third thing that I've seen is that they'll actually bring people into the office and they'll say, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. So it's a trademark. It makes you interesting. Like, Walt Disney would say, create this Disney-like experience. Don't be boring. Don't be, how are you going to market differentiate yourself? Don't be robotic and speak with absolute authority. And then the next thing I do is what McDonald's figured out, suggestive sales. They learned a long time ago that if you tell me I want a Coke and I want a French fry and I want a Big Mac, they don't say, okay, that's, $50. They go, would you like an apple pie for another $5? Or would you like a strawberry shake for an extra $2.50? That's called suggestive sales. And what they found is it blew up their business doing that. I find chiropractors are interesting. They never suggestively sell because they're afraid, okay? And they don't know how. So after I have 3 strategies that are free, right? That you could do when I'm doing an adjustment. I'll say, oh, that was L5. That's an area, Dr. Nichols, that we see a lot of cases here with herniated discs in that zone. And I love helping people that have herniated discs. Obviously, we're not a treatment for herniated discs, but when we can realign the spine, that creates a better biomechanical situation. And many times those discs can heal naturally without the need of drugs or surgery. I love helping people like that, Dr. Nichols. If you ever know somebody like that, I would love to have the opportunity to help them. Okay, that's called touch and tell, right? I touched where this area was, and I suggestively told them of another thing that we like to help in the office. Again, not saying we're treating that, but we help people, because it's true, we help people with herniated discs all the time.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing that people don't understand about consumer mindset. Dr. Nichols, I went to see you. My migraines have gone away. You're the freaking migraine expert in the world. Even though I know you never said you're treating my migraines, but I'm a consumer. I think you're the greatest in migraine treatment. I'm going to send everybody I know with migraines into your office. But the guy sitting next to me has a herniated disc. I'm not going to say anything to him because I don't know that you help people like that. See?
Right.
So
right.
you got to, this is where I'm saying, you got to create an army of people,
referral agents
that are out to help other people. One of the things that my partner in writing books, Dr. Judd O'Grady, said what saved him in chiropractic, he had went to a chiropractor that didn't help him at all. And a lady came up to him. He's buying a bologna sandwich in a deli in New York. And she says, man, I could see you can barely move. And you're like 20 something years old. What's up? And she says, you got to come see my chiropractor. And he's like, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? I've already been to the chiropractor. This is how we talk in New York and New Jersey. And she insistently kept saying, you got to come see my chiropractor. He's different. And that's what I'm saying is that you've got to empower people so that they could become like that lady saying, no, I don't take no for an answer. My chiropractor is going to help you. And he told me he works with people with herniated discs just like you, and he's helped them. And so that's one. So the touch and tell method is great. So the area you're working in, relate it back to something that you help and empower the person to be able to give another referral. The second thing is scientific studies. Oh, Dr. Nichols, great adjustment today. I got to tell you, I'm so excited. I just saw this great scientific study. And by the way, you want scientific studies? They're on tap at the Journal for Vertebral Subluxation Research, JVSR, Journal Vertebral Subluxation Research. Every chiropractor should be a member. It's great. I get stuff in my mailbox every week from them. And I use this to send out to radio and television and on social media.
And that's Dr. McCoy, right?
Yeah, Dr. McCoy and Dr. Christopher Kent. Amazing stuff. So one of the things I'll say is, "Oh, I just read this article about chiropractic and headaches." You know, I love helping people with their headaches. Obviously, I don't treat them, but when we take pressure off the nerves, the body has a phenomenal potential to heal and function optimally, and we see great results that people have been taking pills for years, and now they're headache free. If you ever know anybody like that, Dr. Nichols, that has headaches, I would love to have the opportunity to help them. And that's scientific research combined, because now you're arming them with scientific research, right? That it's not just your opinion, right? and
Right.
then and then the third thing is testimonials. So I'll say, hey, Dr. Nichols, great adjustment today. I got to tell you, I'm really excited. I just shared with my staff this morning a lady who came in for low back pain, but you know what she's really raving about? She had gastric ulcers. And you know what? They've disappeared since she's been getting under chiropractic care. And I've seen that a lot here. By the way, we're not a treatment for gastric ulcers, obviously, but when we can remove the interference from the nerve system, it is the master control system that allows all the other systems in the body, including the gastrointestinal system, to function at its highest level. You ever know anybody like that? I'd love to have the opportunity to take care of them. So it's if you ever know anybody like that, I'm passionate. I would love to have the opportunity to help them, to take care of them. So this person now has learned that you help other things besides what they're suffering from, and that you really love what you do. And you know, there's that whole thing: light yourself on fire, and people come around from around the
Yes,
world
yes,
to
yes.
watch you on fire. Because the average professional is boring. The average professional is going through the motions. The average professional is robotic. The average professional is scripted. You know, so it's like when they get a real human that is really passionate about what they're doing and is constantly telling them about, like, I want to save the world with this thing called chiropractic, they're obviously going to refer more people into your office. So those are some strategies that to help grow your office. So that was a breakout session from the communication system, right? So we had mindset, marketing, conversion, communication, and then the last one is hiring, training, and motivating staff, because that's another issue where staff members hold people hostage. They hold chiropractors hostage and they hold them back. So you have to become good at creating systems like, you know, if I want to hire you to cook burgers at McDonald's, I can teach you that very simply because there's a manual on exactly how to do everything. Every place has a thing, everything has a place. Every single thing is worked out on what that person has to do to be successful. So I can plug anybody into it because there's a manual and there's a procedure. And one of my good friends, Dr. David Serio, who has a bunch of different franchises throughout the world, really, and in his Vita Chiropractic, him and I always, you know, consult with each other. We work with each other on stuff. We help each other. We give each other tips. And he always says to me, he goes, Liam, what are you doing? You know, I go, working on systems, right? That's become my whole life is just working on systems because every day there's a new challenge in your office. There's a new thing that you feel, maybe I didn't handle this right, or there's a new emergency. And so you have to develop systems to ensure that you're not reacting, that you're proactive, and that you're constantly seeing where the puck is going and how to get there. And one of those things that we've been working on implementing right now is AI. I mean, you know, that's a thing where, again, I'm not Mr. Technocrat, but I understand that AI is revolutionizing things. So I want to make sure that I'm taking advantage of that technology, putting it into my practice where I could plug it in to actually. And another friend of mine, Dr. Sean Dill, was mentioning the other day that AI is not to replace people. AI, think about it this way, it could enhance the efficiency of people. And
That's one way to look at it.
that's what I've been finding. I've
Yeah.
been finding is that AI can take a lot of busy work off a human's plate so that they can focus on being human in front of a practice member, right? A CA who's
Yeah.
stressed out because they don't have any technology, they don't have any AI, they have to do every single thing themselves. They can't give it all the humanity. The one thing AI can't do is be a human. And this is what I
Right.
say to chiropractors all the time. Look, and especially this next generation, I go, there's no doubt in my mind, and just I'm going to mention this. You didn't ask about it, but I have a mentoring program. It's an online mentorship. It's called SchubelVisionElite.com. SchubelVisionElite.com.
I'm glad you did mention. I actually have it pulled up off the side here, and I was going to bring it up, and we just got distracted. So
Yeah, and I mean it's super inexpensive. I think it's like $100 a month or something like that. And again, no contract, so you don't find value. Goodbye. You know, have a nice day. It's more of I do it as a service to the youth of the country. I want to, and the world actually. I want to see people thrive, and I've developed it so that I don't have to participate as much in it. Right? I have all the systems in there, so you work at your own schedule and your own pace. Whatever one of those 5 business systems you want to work on, we have modules all throughout the thing that you can access 3 o'clock in the morning in your underwear if you want. You know, like
nice.
go through the videos and stuff. So it's not for people that want like, I'm your coach, I'm gonna hassle you every
Hold
single
your hand.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, right? But all the information is in there. But here's the thing, here's the catch. I can show you all the business systems. But in order to be successful, truly abundantly successful, business systems will get you to a certain level. But in order to be abundantly successful, especially in the chiropractic world, you got to have heart. You got to care. You got to have this burning desire to help people and improve the quality of your service every day. If you don't have that, I can't help you. You got to develop this passion and this fire for people because again, your verbal and your nonverbal communication, and the nonverbal more than the verbal, will rat you out. If you're a fake, if you're a phony, if you're in this just to get everything you can and not give, the patients, the practice members, the clients, they're going to feel that, and they're not going to stay with you, and they're not going to refer to you, and they're not going to help you grow the office because they're going to realize you're not on a mission. Like, and that's the thing. I'm a mission oriented practice. My mission is to educate and liberate. That's what I'm there. I'm educating and liberate. Educate about vertebral subluxation and the tragedy that occurs when people become subluxated and stay that way for life, and liberate through the specific scientific chiropractic adjustment that no other profession is trained to do. And so that's our mission in life. And the vision that I have, and this is Schubel Vision Elite, the mission I have is where every man, woman, and child on the planet is checked and adjusted when necessary from birth. Where, again, a child is born and people say, hey, who's the chiropractor? And they go, well, of course I have a chiropractor. It's this person. You know, it's that's how I see the optimal expression on this planet. And again, we're crucial. I really feel that chiropractors are crucial. It's not I feel, I know. Chiropractors are crucial to the transformation and evolution of the planet because we're the only doctors in the world that are highly trained to detect, analyze, and adjust vertebral subluxation. And that allows the human body to express its optimal innate potential. That's gigantic. And that's the biggest idea that BJ Palmer knew, right? There he is looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
That's the biggest idea I know. And that's what's brought the most level of abundance to my life and the communities that I've had the privilege to serve. And now we're doing that in the Maha movement. We bring it to every single movement. We bring it to the politics. I don't change who I am. I'm the same person, but I know who I am. I know what I'm doing and I know why. And all of my action steps are aligned and congruent with the philosophy of chiropractic.
Yeah. I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, you know what? Number one, I feel like I've just barely scratched the surface of our conversation. But I'm thinking as soon as you mentioned that bust of BJ, I'm like, you just made the perfect circle for us to kind of close out this conversation. You kind of brought us right back to square one where we started the whole thing. So with that note, I think we're going to wrap up for today's podcast with the hopeful expectation that I can have you back on here to explore some of these ideas further. It has been wonderful talking about all this stuff with you. You're a wealth of knowledge, your passion and your concern for chiropractic, and not only chiropractic, but fellow man is like your heart on your sleeve. You're wearing it right there. So you said you can't hide those things. It comes through. It comes through. So thank you for being on the flip side. Thank you for sharing all this with me. I'm really happy. You got any closing words you want to say?
Yeah, I will just say, Dr. Nichols, that
And call me Mike or Michael, because I'm going to start calling you Liam because we're friends now. So
okay,
we can do
great.
that.
Yeah, Michael, I'm just calling you Dr. Nichols out of respect, but Michael, yes, for sure. Michael, I got to thank you for doing this long format podcast. I have to tell you, I was telling a lot of my friends, I've done, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts,
Yeah.
and I was excited about this one. And if you don't mind, maybe you like the guy or don't like him, but if it's okay with you, you just let me know off air. I'm going to start calling you the Tucker Carlson of podcasts and chiropractic because it's this long format. This is exactly what Tucker Carlson does. It's not these little sound bites. It allows the person to express everything about what is going on and really dive deep into all these issues. You know, Joe Rogan does a little bit of the same thing. You know, going deeper than just the soundbite. So I think this is a very unique format. I've never been interviewed in a podcast format that has been this long, and I was excited about it today
Yeah.
because I said this is amazing. Because what usually happens is it's a 20-minute, half hour, 1 hour, and it's like, oh man, we barely scratched the surface of anything. Okay, see you next time. You know, and so this has been a really great experience. So I think you're an innovator in the chiropractic podcast world. I'm going to start calling you the Tucker Carlson of chiropractic podcasts.
From your lips to God's ears, right? So if my success can even come a fraction to what Tucker's has been, and yeah, I'm a fan of Tucker Carlson, and I don't have to agree with everything he says or does. I like the fact that he's a critical thinker, and that he wants to explore information. And the long form format, you know what? Like I just said, I don't feel like we barely scratched the surface of what we want to talk about. So having you back on to dive deeper into some of these concepts would be fantastic. You did wonderful with that. Like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge, and it just pours forth from you. So you're a fount of knowledge, as they say. So I really appreciate that. Hopefully we can get this kind of thing going in the chiropractic community, because it's these long forms that we can really learn from. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you.
Liam, thank you. I'm gonna disconnect with you here and sign off, but we'll be talking. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Pi.
Hi, Pi. Yeah, absolutely. God, I haven't heard that in forever. That's awesome. All right. Liam Schubel, Dr. Liam Schubel. I will be putting your websites and all that bullet point information that you sent me, along with all the marketing things that we do with this. So that is going to get out there so that people can see that. And we will see you on the flip side. Thank you, Liam.